Was hat sich seit der letzten...
Das hätte ich nicht gedacht.
Habt ihr live aufgenommen? Wie geht die Tour?
Welche Pläne habt ihr?
Warum? Weshalb? Wieso?
Weshalb, warum?
Wir gehen der Sache auf den Grund. Musik am Mikro mit Carsten.
Hallo und herzlich willkommen. Hier ist mal wieder euer Carsten Schaefer und heute begrüße ich den englischen Musiker und Komponisten Patrick Molesworth, der das Projekt Zeelley Moon leitet. Darüber und über noch viel mehr spreche ich mit ihm. Hi Pat, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Carsten. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you very much for making it possible. I want to talk a little about your life and also about your career. You have put out 2 LPs so far, so we don't have quite so many LPs to talk about, so we're going to cover it all. But let me go back first and ask you, do you come from a musical family? And I don't just mean people who played music, but who loved music and passed their passion on to you.
Oh, then probably the answer would be no. My dear mother plays piano, and she recently, in her 80s, has revisited playing the piano again. So she quite likes the old jazz standards, and she's very good. There's not really music anywhere else in my family, and I don't know if my mum, if you'd call her passionate, but I wasn't taught music. So no, I think it was down to me, just my own interest, really.
So you just went places, discos or whatever, discovered music, started to love it, listened to the radio, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I was very uncool, and I would, when I first started buying my own records, they would either be pop records or it might even be a TV theme tune. If I liked it, then I liked it. And I didn't really worry about whether it was cool or not.
I remember I loved Black Beauty. Do you remember that one?
Oh, that's one of, yeah, that's a really good one.
You know,
Yeah,
stuff like that. So I totally sympathize with
absolutely.
what you're
Yeah.
saying. But who were your musical heroes? And again, I don't just mean heroes having an influence and impact on the music you play yourself, but people you just loved listening to.
Oh, that's a hard one. I think I really cherry picked. I had favorite bands later, probably in my late teens and 20s. But before then, I really would just like one song that I would like from a band and not necessarily any others. So no, I cherry picked. I was quite fussy. I might only like one. I used to watch the pop charts like most kids. So I think probably there were just certain sounds that influenced me, but not any one specific artist. I guess the piano players generally, Billy Joel, Elton John, and later on Rick Wright from Pink Floyd. I suppose those guys perhaps I thought of as being a bit my heroes, maybe.
So didn't you have formal training at all?
No, no,
Mm.
no.
Mr. Molesworth is a natural, is he?
Well, or just an experiment. I don't know.
Now, the thing about you is we've written quite a few times over time. I listen to your music, I talk to you. You seem like the quintessential Brit to me. Would that be a correct assumption?
Yes, I suppose so. Yes, it's probably yes. I suppose I am. Yeah, I know what you mean, and yes, I think I probably am. My Italian wife tells me I am.
Oh, all right, okay. She must know. Now, how about your first forays into music? Are there embarrassing recordings with school bands and other things that, if you can help it, will never see the light of day?
Yes, I'll give you £1,000 to keep them to yourself. Um, there aren't any embarrassing school, recordings from that period. Though there are some quite embarrassing when I first started multi-track recording at home. So there are some quite embarrassing recordings there where I can listen to those and I can understand where I was heading because the ideas were all there. I just didn't have the experience or the capability of writing a complete song, perhaps in those days. But so yeah, there's some pretty embarrassing recordings I have at home. Yeah,
All right. So, first thing about Zeelley Moon, is it a band or is it a project?
I would say these days it's a project. It's not to say it won't be a band, but at this particular moment, I think you'd regard it as a project. Yes,
Hmm.
yeah, studio project.
Right. And what does the name mean?
Well, I get asked this a lot, and right at the start, I should have invented some really cool rock and roll story, but I didn't. And I've already admitted the truth to lots of people, so I have to stick with the truth. So it's a purely contrived name, but I just thought it sounded nice. The word Zeely came from somebody's surname, somebody I used to know, is my ex-boss's ex-stepdaughter's husband, the surname, but spelt differently. So I just thought it sounded good. I spelt it differently with lots of E's and lots of L's, and it looks cool when you scribble it across the album cover. It's a purely made up name, unfortunately.
And the moon just sounded good?
Yeah, like Paper Moon, Keith Moon.
All
Supertramp
right.
was already taken, apparently.
Supertramp will come up in a few more
Oh.
minutes. Just you wait. Um, now, did you have a concept for the project? What I mean is not just to say, okay, I'm just going to play music that I like and I'm just going to call it Zeely Moon, but did you have a sort of idea or a concept of what you wanted to do beyond that?
For me, the music tends to start with me sitting at the piano. So individual songs come into being purely as songs and very rarely form part of a narrative until possibly later. So no, to be honest, the songs that exist individually to start with, but for some reason, sometimes I don't know, maybe it's that I read the narrative into it. So for me, there's a bit of an overall because I know what the songs are about. There's perhaps a kind of a narrative that is in my head when I listen to a complete album, and that could be different for different people, I suppose, listening to it. But I've never set out to make an album that's about one subject. It tends to contain the state of affairs or the state of my state of mind, perhaps during a certain period.
almost every day, running round, 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 while you were making it up by yourself without a sound. And the closest I came was when I was furthest away, falling down, 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 down. And all that you needed from me, get you off the ground. But the big boys at school, they were nobody's fool. Lost and found, 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 found. Well, nobody showed me the way when they knocked me down. Now it's the same kind of song, maybe no right and wrong, wandering round, 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 and killing the dream if it seems that it don't belong. What I couldn't see, she sees in me, turns it round, 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 turning it up and then turning it upside down.
Babe, did you hear me?
Where do you record?
I'm usually recording my vocals here at home in a very small home studio, which doubles up as a rehearsal room. And keyboards and pianos are recorded here as well. And then the majority of almost all of the other musicians, we're recording either in the studio or sometimes we've done it remotely. We've done it remotely a couple of times the last few years, as you might understand. But all the recording and the engineering is done at a place called Area 18 Studios in London.
So who does the engineering, the mastering, the mixing? Do you do that, or do you have somebody who does it?
I have a guy called Richard Bignell of Area 18 Studios who's an absolute wizard, and he's the one pressing the buttons. I'm kind of generally directing things, but he's the one actually doing the technical stuff.
All
It's a,
right.
it's a dark art. It's an amazing skill. I mean, I'm okay in a studio, but it's a whole other level of skills that I don't really have. I'd rather concentrate on the music and let Richard do what he's good at.
Well, then kudos to him because the sound on your two records so far is just absolutely brilliant. So
Thank you.
no doubt about that. So your very first record, your self-titled record, came out in 2017. How did you approach it? Did you have a batch of songs that you basically worked on, or how did this whole thing come about?
The previous album of 2017, the songs that are on there, some of them, or the recording on them, had started as early as about 2013. There's about 3 or 4 songs that were recorded as early as that. In my mind, they were always destined to be part of a body of work, an album, and I hadn't quite figured out how to fit them in. So yes, again, to a large extent, they were songs that we used to gig when we were playing live, and so to make an album out of them was just a case of putting them in the right order. And again, I suppose some of the songs were written. Most of the songs existed whilst we were still gigging, but again, when they're put together, they kind of almost loosely form a narrative, which is kind of partly personal, partly imagined, and partly ambiguous enough that hopefully it can be interpreted as it suits.
Mm-hmm. Now let's talk about your style. The music is definitely progressive rock. Some songs are shorter, others are longer, but it's definitely the symphonic type. I'm reminded of bands like maybe Renaissance, Caravan, Camel, and so on and so forth. Very melodic, not too many time changes, doesn't have to be. Is that just the stuff that you want to do, or did you ever think, ooh, I would like to do all sorts of time changes, a bit like Gentle Giant or King Crimson or something like this?
Actually, no. I mean, you mentioned the theme tune to Black Beauty.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, using that's an absolutely perfect example because I can hear it in my head so clearly. I always aspired to create a certain emotion in music. So I guess, if you were going technical, it would be about the kind of chord progressions. It would be about the sevenths and the ninths and the diminished blah, 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 all these fancy chords, most of which I've found because I don't read music. Most of those things I've found and discovered just by experimenting on the piano. So in terms of the style, I'm not really into constant time changes. I'm really impressed that, with the bands that do it, it's great, but it doesn't really necessarily do it for me. I quite like in the middle of one song, maybe going off at a tangent and possibly coming back or not coming back. But I've never really been I'm not a virtuoso musician. I'm not what you'd call I don't regard myself as a pianist. So whilst I admire the virtuosity of some of these amazing musicians, it's not necessarily what actually kind of turns me on. So I just like those kind of the sort of the angst of Pink Floyd, but the melody of someone like Supertramp or some of the bands you just mentioned. So yeah, I've kind of always been into that.
You've mentioned Supertramp twice. I'm going to put you on the spot now. Admit it. Admit it. Weight of the World of the first record was influenced directly by Fool's Overture by Supertramp off of Even in the Quietest Moments.
Well, the problem is sometimes I can be sitting at the piano and there's a funny guy, a YouTube guy, I forget his name, who did a video on this. Sometimes you can be sitting at the piano and you think, this is really nice. Oh, bugger, it's Supertramp. Or yes, I know exactly the little musical moment you mean. Well, people may not believe it, but with my hand on my heart, it's a kind of a F major seventh going down to a G, but with the root stays in the F. And I came across that by myself, but of course, as soon as I played it, you can play it in a slightly different way, and then it is absolutely Supertramp, Fool's Overture. But I thought, well, it appears in the song where I wanted it to appear. I don't want it to sound like I've plagiarized anybody. So I tried to play it in a slightly different way, slightly different finger pattern. So, but yeah, of course, it's a similar. I don't even know what key that's played in on Fool's Overture.
Listen, Pat, you could have just said yes.
But that wouldn't be the truth. It wouldn't be very interesting either, would it?
I know. No, but Well, we're having a lot of fun, and so that's part of it. of course, you don't copy anybody, but of course, we all have our influences.
Oh yeah,
We play
absolutely.
music and we cannot deny them.
No,
Um,
no, absolutely.
it then took 6 long years for your next album, The Author and the Dreamer, to come out. Why the long time?
Well, by the time I'd finished the first album, I probably already had enough songs to do almost a whole album. But to be honest, they were, for me at least, they were old. They were songs that we'd been gigging for some time. So the second album, with the exception of one song, all of them have been written since 2017. One of them, in fact, Where the Wind Blows, was written almost quite last minute. So it was all new material. And I don't know. I suppose it's the writing. Probably the writing process takes the time. Sometimes there are periods where ideas are not forthcoming or something that you're working on just isn't coming together. And other times a song starts, for example, Where the Wind Blows, it's in two halves, as you know. The first half came about because I've got several keyboards, as you might imagine. And I took out one of my old keyboards, an old Roland keyboard, and I just reminded myself of what it's capable of and what it's like to play. And I just noodled around on a B flat major chord and noodled around. I thought, I like that. That's great. That's a song. That's an intro. That's an intro right there. So noodling around for ages, thinking, okay, yep, I've sorted out. That sounds great, but it obviously needs to go somewhere else. But once I'd done that, that song came together quite quickly. And the second half that changes time signature, it goes to a 6/8. Although the lyrics are completely new, the chord progression in that, which is also a little bit kind of Supertramp because it goes from a C minor seventh to a F major seventh to a F minor seventh, and that happens in there's at least one song Supertramp where that happens. So that part of it is quite old, but yeah, 6 long years. Yeah, combination of coming up with new material, working on the lyrics, polishing it, making it good, and then just arranging time in the studio, really. In theory, I suppose there's no reason why, in theory, it couldn't happen, Monday to Friday, but in reality, it just doesn't. And this time, of course, some of the musicians were doing things remotely, so I was waiting on other people as well. I know the 6 years really goes kind of quickly in some ways.
Yeah, I totally understand. Yeah, I can imagine. So, how do you see your development musically from the first to the second LP?
I think that the first album, the songs were. I was thinking about it literally the other day. Actually, I was telling somebody yesterday that the songs on the first one were mostly most of the songs on there are as we used to play them, as we gigged them. Whereas on this second album, almost all of the songs, except one, are new. There's no compromise on them. So I've written them. I haven't had to dull them down to suit anybody else or make them simpler to make them more gig friendly. I was able to write them and record them exactly as I wanted. So I think probably the second album, I've been able to be a little bit more, not selfish, what's the word?
Self-indulgent.
Self-indulgence. Yeah, self-indulgent. Yeah, maybe self-indulgent. Yeah, I didn't have to compromise. I didn't have to make any compromise. Of course, that can be a bad thing because you can start going off on the wrong path and there's no one there to tell you to bring it back. So I try to be my own critic at the same time if I can.
Right, right. So the new album is called The Author and the Dreamer. What's it all about?
Well, as I said earlier, I think any body of work for me tends to sort of represent a mindset, a frame of mind. For me, there's a mixture of songs on here which are partly to do. Main Moon Man, for example, is kind of talking about putting your heart into your art or your music in this case, and putting it out there and just asking, rhetorically asking the question whether anyone really cares. The world does not necessarily need another Zeelley Moon album, but Pat Molesworth, Zeelley Moon, needs to make an album. So there's that. For me, it tends to be a lot of reflective stuff, a lot of reflection in the songs. What's it all about? So the narrative, yeah, there's a lot of frustration the last few years, which don't directly influence the lyrics, but a couple of songs, Poison in My Tea. Actually, that's quite an old song. We used to gig that many years ago, and then we dropped it from the sets because it wasn't really working. that's a song about, somebody's a bit frustrated. And I do have frustrations. We kind of live in a bit of a world where there's just lots of things that go on that we put up with, especially during the last few years, during 2020, 2021, things that we put up with and went along with. And then with hindsight, well, for many people, myself included, at the time, you're thinking, this can't be right. Something crazy is happening. This isn't right. Something's wrong here. And then looking at it with hindsight, you think, yeah, something was definitely wrong. There are people in charge who are educated, but they've not necessarily got any better handle on life than me. And they're probably younger than me. They're just guys like me, just trying to make their way through the world. So, a bit of frustration in there. Yeah, overall, the album is about where my mind's at, perhaps. Not specifically me, mostly me, but made a bit ambiguous so it can hopefully relate to anybody. Yeah, sort of represents the last 6 years, I suppose.
You the author or the dreamer, telling me the day is night. I think my
Now, you just mentioned Main Moon Main. I am reminded on this record a little bit of Genesis, to be honest with
Oh,
you.
okay.
And Main Moon Main reminded me title-wise of Madman Moon, of A Trick of the Tail by Genesis. Is that just a coincidence, or was there a bit of an influence there?
Well, definitely a coincidence because in my mind, I really liked the slow kind of 4/4 of Blue by David Gilmour on his album On an Island. So it wasn't that I was trying to copy it or emulate it, but as the song developed, the sound to me reminded me very much more of that rather than anything by Genesis.
Hmm.
And again, chord progression came about just through experimenting. So yeah, it's interesting what you hear in it.
Yeah, well, and then of course I ask you, and you tell me off.
Oh,
I have to ask you, have you got? I know these songs are like children, but have you got a favorite track on The Arthur and the Dreamer?
yes. I have to say, my favorite is Where the Wind Blows. I was quite pleased with how that came out. I was excited when I first started writing it because it was initially led by this simple kind of a chord progression that I felt certain had legs, as we would say. And I enjoyed the lyrics on it. I enjoyed writing the lyrics. I've had a lot of compliments on the lyrics on the whole album, actually, but especially on that one, where people have suggested that they're almost like poems, which I took as a huge compliment. I mean, that suits me. I'm not a well-read man. I'm not academic. I'm not an intellectual. But if I can scribble a few words that people like, then that's very satisfying. So yeah, Where the Wind Blows is probably my favorite overall.
Hmm. Well, I have to say, listening to the music, one can see or hear, well, see in the lyrics that you are a very sensitive bloke, and you put that in music, and I like that a lot.
Oh,
I
thank
have
you.
to say,
Yeah,
you know.
thank you.
So if you say I'm not all that well read, well, we've got the brainy people who have no emotions whatsoever, and then
That's true.
we might have the emotional people who might not be as well read as you say, and I'd rather
Yeah.
go for them, to be honest with you, you know. So the album came out last year. What are you up to currently? Are you already writing new songs, new material for a new record, which comes out next year?
Yeah, I wish. I wish. I have got some ideas, so I'm working on a few ideas. I have got some material I'm working on. It's not in any way forming what could be an album just yet, but hopefully, yeah, hopefully. So I guess that will be the next thing. I am talking to a couple of guys to see if some live playing might be real, if that's realistic. I think for me, I wouldn't really want to compromise on it. If we were going to play live, I'd want it to be to do it live properly. I think I speak probably for other people, and that what I find that as an individual artist, once you have put out a body of work, there often feels like a bit of a vacuum. You've used all your creative energy doing that, and then of course there's a bit of promotion and interviews and things like that, which is all lovely. So musically, it becomes a bit of a vacuum. Then gradually, I start getting back into it. It seems to take quite a few months. So I suppose only really about nowish I'm starting to feel like some ideas are coming together.
Okay. Speaking of promotion, where can people find you on the net, social media website? Where can they find your music?
Oh, okay. Well, it's all the usual places. iTunes, Spotify, YouTube seems to be the one where a lot of people are finding it. We have a simple Facebook page because the name is actually unique. It means that as long as you type it in, you'll find it.
That's true. Now, I have two more questions, which I'm very curious to see what you're going to say. Right now, at this very moment, if you could take one record to the desert island with you, which one would it
Oh, the
be?
Desert Island Discs.
Yes, just one.
If I could take one record.
Yes, to make it
Oh,
a bit more tricky, because if I give you 20, you'll probably find it fairly easy to answer, but one
yeah.
might just be a
But one.
little, you know.
Oh, that's very hard. Do you know what? It would probably be. I don't know whether it would suit the being on a desert island, but I do like a bit of Carly Simon singing some of the old blues standards. So maybe that. Yeah, Carly Simon. I think I can't. Well, Light of the Moon. I think the album's called either
All
that
right.
or the Amazing Darts from the '80s. But No, we'll go with Carly Simon.
For like 15 years now, and I've always tried it for years and years, and it never.
Just describe what happened to you.
Well, as I got out the first time, I started saying to myself, wow, this is good. And I started working on
When my body, mind, and soul are free, or when my piano's feeling me, and I'm reaching far and wide from inside. Gonna make a tune never heard before, and I'll do my best, bring it to your door, though you're miles and miles away. Well, they say I can, 'cause I'm the main moon man. Are you Am I getting through? Does it speak to you? Do you all I nearly did and I could have done, all I just no time and the just begun, while the time is ticking on. So you write it down and bare your soul. It could be part, it could be whole, it could be anyone.
And another thing, I found a little sort of figurine of a cat, a wooden cat that I had as a little child recently. And I had forgotten I still had it. And I was very happy I still had it. So is there something from your childhood that you still have, which survived miraculously the decades, and you're very happy that you still have it?
There are two objects, but the one that's probably the most easily relatable is my teddy, a teddy bear, which I remember exactly when my mother bought it for me. I remember it cost £2.50. I remember the shop that it came from. And I remember being keen to show it off to my then school teacher, because it's just an inanimate object, but it has a face on it. And that face was in my bedroom, kind of staring at me probably, well, more or less forever. I finally I had a good excuse to find it a new home when my first grandchild was born nearly 2 years ago. So he's gone. He's finally gone.
Two very important questions about that. When did you get it, and what was his name?
Aha. Okay. I was 8. So I can't do the maths very quickly. 1973, about 1973. And I called him Edward. I don't know why. And my sister thought Winston would be a good surname. So it was Edward Winston.
Very royal, very British and royal.
It does, doesn't it?
And the last question I have, we talked about all sorts of things now, but is there something important to you, maybe a message or something that you would like to tell our listeners?
Oh, well, when it comes to music, I think good music is music that you like, and don't let anyone else tell you different. And buy a Zeelley Moon album, maybe.
Absolutely. I can only highly recommend that.
Thank you.
You know. So, Pat, thank you very, very much for this interview and for the music as well. I'm
Thank
really
you.
glad we've got this stuff because it is very melodic music. It even has like commercial potential at times, so why not put it in the charts and stuff? I definitely appreciate the stuff, and I hope you keep making a lot of records before you retire. I can tell you when the next record comes out, I shall be knocking on your door yet again and request entry.
You'll be very welcome. And if you're ever in England, well, Wales technically, but if you're ever in the UK, you must come and knock on my door. You must email me and I'll buy you a beer.
Oh, certainly will. Thank you very much. All right, Pat, thanks very much. Have a great one.
Thank you very much, Carsten. Thank you, Carsten, for having me on. Thank you.
I'll talk to you again.
Thank you. And good best wishes to your listeners. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Like when to wear your vest and out across the road. She's working hard.